But who would actually want cannabis incense?
Weirdos.
Well,
I feel
like,
people
No,
that
what is the actual...
no, people that take CBD.
I think our podcast, like in terms of the demographic, what I've seen it can resonate well with is young men. Well, I think the whole Alpha Man's podcast are a lot for men who have never reached their peak or just failures on themselves, trying to glory for pride. Whereas us guys, we have the potential to affect guys our age who have the potential to be better men, and not just some like wannabe when they're 50 because they wasted their time partying. It's actually about being a good man, because we need more good men in the world, innit? Like if you take care of yourself and your community as a man, you make the world a better place, because your community, your instant little world, that's a better place. Like with me growing up in the gym for 8 years, that became my community. It fed me to grow into a bigger man. Then when I grew to like the top of my gym, I gave back to the gym, giving out free sessions to everyone and stuff like that, because I'm supposed to be making a better change for the world. So that's what you should be doing.
Round of applause.
That right there. Yo, people, welcome back to the Route 411 podcast. My name's Ali.
My name's Alim.
And today we're joined by a special guest, one of my boys,
Coach
Danny Pham. How you doing, fella?
Do you want to do that again? Because I spoke over you.
Nah, I don't mind.
Okay, cool.
First take, baby.
Okay, first take. Listen, I'm new to this. But,
No worries, my brother.
Thank you for having me
Don't
on.
you ever talk over us again.
Oh, sorry, Papio.
We bullied him onto the show. Like, make sure you talk about some fitness.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
let
man.
me just give that free value out, innit? Let me work relentlessly to give you guys free shit.
Some free game,
Free game, bro.
Hey, that is what this episode is about today.
Yeah, this is the free game
This should be the
podcast.
free game episode, bro, because
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to give out a bunch of free game.
Yeah, the next time you hear Danny speak, he's going to be charging you £60 for his course.
And I can't lie, after doing it for 6 months, it's been the best transformation of my life.
He's just like every other PT. Don't even listen to him.
No.
He's here for vibes.
Jesus Christ.
We needed an episode. We needed to do this.
Bro, I'm getting good, man. Oh my lord.
It just started.
We haven't even started, but listen. Let my
How you doing, Daddy?
let my content.
Introduce
Let the
yourself.
people know who the hell you are, brother.
So I'm Coach Pham. I don't really know what I identify myself as right now. I'm working out my career, but I do a lot of side quests, and that's in the hope to find the main quest, which I'd like it to be personal training, coaching, helping the average person with science-based information. Shout out to my boy Julian, though, as to be grateful to put me in this position, for connecting me with someone like Ali through
my
American
doggy.
football at university. Met this guy a few times. Great energy, great communication. So why would I not be on this podcast? I'm a fan of Route 1.
He's a fake fan!
Route.
Route
And this is why you shouldn't believe anything this guy's about to say today. He don't
Professional
believe it.
kappa.
He don't even know who we are. He doesn't even know what show is he on. He thinks.
Yo, remind me.
Man said Route what?
Oh,
He said I'm a big fan of Route.
No, because I said Route and I was like, oh, we did that in the BTS. And I was like, oh,
Man said I'm a big fan of Route what?
No,
I
listen,
mean
Route
Route
411, yeah.
They're lies. It's all lies.
All right, now clip, cut, edit, Route 411 podcast. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Honestly, if it wasn't for these little moments in life, I wouldn't be in this position. So again, grateful to have the people in my life and the community that I have. Things like
Praise
that we'll
God,
be talking
for
about.
real.
Yeah, we'll be talking about during the podcast. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Just really happy.
That's great, man. Let's get into a little bit more about your actual credibility then. Since we want people to listen to you. Jokes aside, like where did your fitness journey start and what brought you to where you are today?
So I started working out in late 2015 when I was 14 turning 15.
Okay.
Started off with bodyweight exercises, naturally progressed through all the like training phases, like the powerlifting phase, the bodybuilding phase, recycled those phases all the way till now, 22, where I'm kind of like an athlete because I play American football at university, but I also want to look good for aesthetics because that's content and I want to help other people look good. So I need to lead by example doing that. Part-time or seasonal work, I'm a lifeguard on P&O cruise ships. Actually, I'm not just say a cruise ship company because I'm not trying to
No names out there.
and anticipation of what might be said, gotta just say I work for a cruise ship company as a lifeguard.
Yeah.
I was lifeguarding in the past year as a gap year, and until then I've been at university. So I followed the kind of academic route, studied biology, chemistry, PE, A levels, did shit, and then ended up in Brunel, but still made the most out of my circumstances. I'm studying this field of work, this field of physiology, sports science as a passion, not really a career. Yeah. It's something that I've always kept with me since I started training. because the knowledge of science was the reason I got results.
Yeah.
So my job is to help communicate the science to people, because most of the time, if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, they don't really want you to know what the truth is about your health. Because if they do that, then you take charge of your life and then you start taking healthier options for yourself. There's intentionally a system created to keep people in like a working rat mode. You could be a fully fledged athlete running 5Ks every weekend, or you could just be what most people are. It's like a working rat. That as a system is quite crazy. So this is why the knowledge is the power to kind of liberate you. And it sounds really hippie and really dumb. Like it sounds like very cliche, but it is a way for you to unlock powers in your life, or not even powers, capacities that you didn't realize you had. And those capacities just add value to your life. You're not taking energy out to, you know, find time to work out. You're unlocking what working out can do for you. And then you have a better life on a day-to-day basis. Like for me, working out for 8 years, I see people on a regular basis struggling with like physical issues. Yeah. And whether they're people my age or people a few years older, I'm like, wow, shit, I would hate to feel like that. Like with the pain they describe, I would hate to feel like that when I'm at that point. Yeah. So I do every preventative measure, which is preparing my body to live a longer life. And through exercise and training, that's how I achieve that.
Yeah. And that's the point that I wanted to touch up on, because I'm like, you've mentioned that you've been in sports since you were like 14, 15. So literally in your prime teen years, it's like, I want to start working out. Let me start off with the body weight work. When was it at the point where you knew that even through education and everything, you're like, yo, sports is everything that I want to like chase? Was it? When was the point that you're like, you knew what degree you wanted to study? This is kind of like the pathway that's working for me right now. And this is where I see myself essentially. Like, what made you pick that? Because I can't lie, I don't know a lot of 14, 15-year-olds that are willing to study sports.
So with the context of it being sports science, that's why I preface with saying I don't really know what I identify myself as, because I say the closest thing I can say is biomechanist. So I like to see the body as a working machine, the same way an engineer sees his car. Yeah. And I'm able to identify and assess issues and provide diagnostics to a large range of physical issues. And that's just based on my 8 years of experience. And also one thing I have to give credit to was my private healthcare placement in Harley Street. Yeah. I worked with a really good prestige company. And
that was an internship, right?
That was an internship. It was a sports science and business internship, but don't let the sports word of the science take away from it. Like, because people think sports are normally like a muscle over mind matter. Yeah. Sports science is really encompassing how to get a normal person to performance level, the same way a engine, like you get some mechanics who can step up or remap a car. Yeah. That's what
get the full potential out of the machine,
unlock capacity,
the human. Yeah, exactly.
Because default out the factory, default out of schools, a lot of people like meet just the bare minimum standard. We have arbitrary numbers that we've given to the population to keep them at like what we consider healthy, so that they can believe that they're healthy without seeking the fulfillment of more potential.
Is that like for example BMI? We know what an average person's health should be,
or what
is considered obese and what is considered like skinny. Like what do you think about that?
That takes me back to I say probably 16, 17, which is when I was kind of realizing and debunking that system of health identification. Yes, it's the positives of the system is that it's really general and it helps identify certain risk areas by creating risk bands. So it doesn't mean if you have a bad BMI, you're instantly going to die or something. You're in a range of more risk. Yeah. What this comes down to is risk assessment though. So yes, your BMI is one thing, but how many other risks are you managing in your life? If it's like smoking, if it's drinking, if it's running out, if you're going out running every weekend, you're managing that risk through your actions. When it comes to, remind me again what we were talking about, the BMI.
So like BMI and stuff.
Regarding performance indicators, those are completely different to health indicators, but they're just as relevant and in the same domain. It's just the way we classify them. So if we're talking CPET testing, which can test your VO2 max, which is essentially your ability to run at max or to give out energy at maximum capacity when you're not breathing oxygen. So you're familiar with anaerobic respiration? Yeah. CPET testing allows you to test how much you can go once you're out of oxygen. So that's kind of like a final
before
stand.
You feel that stitch, that lactic acid building up and all that.
Hitting that wall type of thing. And even then, if you do hit the wall, certain athletes and people have demonstrated you can push past it. Yeah. So again, you see that there's levels to like maximizing potential imagine the level that the majority of the population is just at a baseline level where inevitably, if they follow that system of being healthy for the, like, you know, maybe 30 years, within the last 20 years or 30 years of their life, they will still have more health issues. Yeah. So ratio wise, what I talk about is time investment. If you're investing like 1 hour and you're 1 hour a day every single year for, that's like 365 hours in a year, right? If you invest 365 hours in a year, you would probably get another 3 to 5 years. If we could do a conservative estimate, 3 to 5 years on your lifespan. And that's a 300% increase or 500% increase on the hours that you get. So I'm saying
how does
investment,
that compare to what we're told?
Compared to what you're told is they keep that as a bare minimum. So the national health guidelines are different for every country, which is already kind of like
a
red flag because it's like, okay, so we don't
but
have a generalized
See
defined.
what I mean? Like in Sweden, they're a lot fitter than us.
Yeah, somehow. Like for example, mental health rates are way better in, you know, Scandinavian countries or something like that. Why is Finland such a happy country? There's so many bands and systems that we use that it's hard to rely on one because a lot of them are arbitrary. Which is why my realm of sports science provides that specialist niche realm of if every person has an individualized skill set to them or individualized health system to them, we work out their health system. We don't create a health system for them because each person, we should know from basic science, is individualized.
Yeah.
For context, I read a study probably about 2 months ago where it looked at the shoulder insertions, right? And normally, let's say for when people train shoulders, you've heard you've got the front delt, the side delt, the rear delt.
There are 3 delts.
There was one cadaver study. A cadaver mean they cut open the
dead body.
They cut open a dead body. One person had 5 tendon bands. So in a tendon band doesn't automatically say we have a head for it, but it's essentially a section of that muscle. So in the front, they had 2 sections instead of just one whole large section.
Oh,
in the side, they had 3 sections instead of one whole large section, and in the back side, they had 2.
And is it saying in that study that it's like unique between different cadavers, like one anatomy of one body that they
have different tendon bands? There was like 3 to 5. Some people had up to like, I think it was like 7.
Was the most they saw.
Yeah, I think in one of the studies, but it's all in photos. The one that I read for sure was a 5 because I just looked at it from a 5 perspective. And what they did was cut the muscle. Like you see a steak, when you cut a steak in half, if you have like a ribeye steak, you can see all those marbling, all that little kind of like texture. Yeah. Sometimes you can feel like when you're cutting really hard through something, that's normally like a tendon, right? A muscle because it's more stiff than the muscle. That kind of system of tissue is how most of your muscles are organized, and the tendon side, you can strengthen that, or you can, you know, juicing up the muscle side. Yeah. But it depends which, like how active you are, how healthy you are, which determines that composition usually.
That's what I wanted to touch on about as well. You mentioned earlier where it's like, especially at our age, like we're 23, 22, like where what most people would say when they look back in their years, this is your prime. This is the years where you can discover how much you can, I don't know, work out in a day, or how much you can, for example, go out on a weekend, and does it affect your scale? But it's like finding that balance, I think, is the hard thing in our 20s. Because I'm like, I can't lie, like the first 2 years for me, like this is just me getting personal, like in uni, it was a lot more conservative. I was on training, I was on that. Then I discovered American football, discovered the other life and social aspect of being in a sport team. And it's like, how do you find that balance between, you know, the fun side of being an student athlete or athlete, and, you know, balancing, I gotta make sure no matter what I do on a weekend, no matter what I do on a Friday night, that I'm good for practice on Tuesday, I'm good for practice on Thursday, and I'm good for game day on Saturday or Sunday. It's like, that's the hard finding point, because for me, it's been like, it's a very slippery slope where it's like, you can go out a couple days in a row, right? And be good to go, you know, you bounce back, the body's young. But at the same time, you're like in the long-term aspect of looking at my goals and what I'm trying to go for. I kind of gave myself a kick in the nuts, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, bro, you went out 2 days in a row. That gym session or that workout with coach is going to be peak.
I guess that's where a lot of people struggle. So what would you say to those people, for example, that find it hard to keep a strict diet or follow a particular diet? Because there's so many out there that work for so many different people. What is the best way to actually get started and keep going?
So a good indicator of where you should, like, to identify where you're at that stage, I'd say for most people, if you don't enjoy physical fitness or physical challenge, your body's not healthy enough to be in a point where it should be challenged, like enjoying that stuff. Because there's plenty of studies. You can go into Journal of Psychology, Journal of Physiology, Journals of Medicine about the runner's high, or, well, that's specifically one thing.
I've heard that one.
Exercise highs.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Where you look at, for example, like in if we look at, brain, even neuroscans. So when someone's sleeping, there's somewhat like all that built up serotonin, dopamine, growth hormone, all of the hormones and, electrical activity you stimulated during your exercise gets flushed out better when you've had an exercise during the day. Whereas all those moods and kind of like feelings or whatever, they will not flush out through your head as well if you have bad sleep or if you don't exercise as well.
Therefore, you're dealing with a lot more problems that your body could probably fix naturally.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it's a debt situation. The time you don't invest accrues debt, and there's interest on that debt. Damn. Which is why life is cruel. It's cruel like that, though. It's exponential because it's either you exponentially choose the right options or you exponentially fall down.
Yeah.
It is a tipping point. You just don't see it, but on the grand scale, if we were to draw a graph and you have like people exponentially failing and exponentially doing well for their health, there's no tipping point. You can just see it slowly. It's still y equals x over 2 or something like that,
I like that you said that it's an exponential growth or decline because you're right. Like it's very easy at the beginning. It's like, yo, bro, I started working out 4 or 5 days a week. All of a sudden your numbers are going up. You're running fast on the football pitch, whatever it may be. All of a sudden you start going out a couple of weekends and it's like, damn, I'm gassed out. Shit, I ain't got the tank that I thought I had. Oh, I'm gassing out. It's like, I need to rep off, coach. Like, you see what I mean? Like it's a kind of a catalyst where it's like, before you know it, it's kind of like, what have I done wrong, essentially? And what is the common pitfalls you'd say that the average Joe does face, and the thing that hinders them from, I don't know, maybe taking that step in the right direction before the step in the wrong direction? There's a lot out there, but...
I'll say from personal experience and clinical and other people experience, it's a pretty holistic experience I've seen in the world. I think most people just self-loathe too much. In my training for being a lifeguard, we got taught how to do safeguarding, which is taking care of people, especially and identifying mental health issues. One thing that it's not like, super professional training. Don't get me wrong. This is just something that I have to do as part of my lifeguarding job because there's a lot of responsibility. Yeah. One thing I remember from the course, though, that really stuck with me is that especially when dealing with people who are kind of like, highly anxious or highly depressed, when it comes to dealing with that, the best way to beat depression is... oh my God, I forgot the word.
He built it up so much.
Hey, we're going to
I can't wait to hear what he's going to say. And then he went, I forgot.
It's the word for taking action, but there's another word for it.
Proactiveness, I guess.
No, not proactiveness. It begins with A. And the way assertion. The best way to break depression is like a cycle, right? So that negative exponentialness, if you were to plot that on a graph, if you realize you do a bunch of negative exponentials, it will
feeling of hopelessness,
it will come back to full circle though, right? So if you have a quadrant graph and you're going down, if you're going negative, right? So let's say on one half of the graph, from one half of the graph, if you're going exponentially downwards, you draw down to like the end point at like, let's say 0 to 100. Yeah. From 0, you're rising. 70, you start declining. And then 100, let's say years old or something. That's when you kind of hit the death point. Yeah. In terms of like a non-mathematical way, if you were to draw that on a graph on 4 different graphs, it would form a circle essentially. So if we're saying that people are exponentially falling, that exponential falling doesn't actually take you anywhere. It just takes you into a spiral, because you're just going downwards in your own self. And that's why depression cycles are hard to break, because they will get worse. Every symptom will get progressively worse with time. Time is constant. That's why it's a graph, because obviously time is a mathematical constant. When it comes to valuing that, then you have to take the constant, ratio the value to the constant. So the value of time that you can spend loathing or hurting yourself, or just feeling like upset, just beating yourself up for not going to the gym and stuff like that. You could spend time doing one thing, and that's being assertive and taking action. So if you assert yourself away from your emotions, you break that cycle.
I like that attitude.
That's why the assertion thing was really important.
Would you say it's a lot, like, it's easier said than done?
Easier said than done, for sure.
What's the best way to actually break out that cycle?
From personal experience here, let yourself get so sick of yourself to the point where you're sick of dealing with yourself. And you want better for yourself, because you will only
I was gonna say that sounded so dark. I was also
but
once you get to that sort of bottom of the pit, it's like, yo, how worse can it be than now?
Force myself out of here, or death.
And one thing I can't lie,
the harsh reality of it anyway.
That's what I mean. It's like, you have a choice here, and if we want to break it down into 2 realms, like yin and yang, chaos and order, or fight or flight, Are you going to fight your systems, or are you going to keep running away from them and let them consume you?
Essentially, you can say happiness is a choice.
I feel like
okay, I was gonna say happiness is a manifestation, but that's some hippie
shit.
shit.
That's a different touch point. But just before that, like I wanted to just kind of like agree or touch upon the point where you're like, you can either decide to follow that spiral, like you said, or you can do better. And one thing that I've learned, and I don't know if it's through, maybe it's just through my life experiences or the stuff I've learned through people, friends, content, whatever it may be, the stuff we consume basically on a daily basis. But it's been like that 1% better everyday attitude. It's like technically in a year, if you do a little bit better than you did yesterday, it's not as bad as it was. Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, I can't lie. Like, with us going through uni, being students, finding out the working world, how tough it is. There's bills. There's too much bullshit flying at you 100 miles per hour. However, it's like, yo, yesterday man did this. I did a little bit better today. Cool. Tomorrow I got to do better than that. And it's like, that's your starting stone. That's the stepping stone. And if you do 1% every day, who knows? At the end of 1 year, you should look back at yourself and be like, yo, I'm not that guy who I was a year ago.
Yeah. That's why you should be able to, like, for example, I always advocate for anyone, regardless of if you're a trainer or even on at any point in your life, take photos of yourself. Just be able to be grateful that you won't get that time back or that moment you capture back. You won't ever. And you don't want to be the person that looks back and be like, damn, I don't really remember myself. It might be fun and fleeting because you've grown out of your old shell, but it's also nice to use that as moments of gratitude to see where you've come from. And that's why I think one thing, even though like I took a break from social media because of some personal shit, I still took photos and I've kept those photos hoarded up because I know one day they're gonna be used as testament and gratitude towards my growth. And it's better to have visual representation than memory, because we know even in studies, memories aren't as accurate as, you know, paintings or drawings or, you know, text
documentation.
Text documentation isn't easy to remember compared to photos, because like the saying goes, you know, a paragraph is like 100 words, and then a photo is 1,000 a photo is 1,000 words, and then I like to say a video is a million or trillion more, because when you capture those moments, just short little videos for yourself, you can look back and know exactly from that clip. You can help reignite that long-term memory storage in your head and be like, oh, I remember what I was doing here, and I remember what this was like. Okay, am I happy with myself, or was I not happy with myself? And if you can fairly hold yourself accountable in those moments, then that's how you grow. Like, you have to reflect on yourself. But I think a lot of people lack the accountability, which is why they then struggle with the progress thing. Because honestly, I hated taking photos of myself when I was like starting off, but for some reason, probably someone I listened to on YouTube, I knew to take those photos because I won't get that time back. And I had that burning conviction in my head that I will get better than this. And 8 years later, what I wanted when I was 14, I got. So that, in terms of like, whether we call it manifesting or whatever, I didn't know what those words were back when I was a kid. I just knew.
You had a picture in your mind as like, I want to get there. Like, that's my destination.
And I didn't know how long it would take, but I think that's one thing people don't underestimate. I've been on this journey for 8 years. It's really hard for me, even when I'm a coach now, to go back to people who are just starting out, or maybe 2 years deep into their training, and try to relate back to them at what stage they were at, because it's a massive journey. And for me, meeting those type of people is a way for me to walk backwards and try and meet them at the stage that I already ticked off. And that's a memory trip in itself, which is why my own photos and videos serve as tools to help me remember how I did things, so that I'd help them when they're doing those same things.
This is where I was at that point in life. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned happiness as a manifestation.
That's what I think.
Go deeper into that.
So perfect like interjection there, because it aligns with what I just said. When I was taking photos of myself as a kid, I was not happy, but I knew I'm gonna one day these photos. Like, I looked at myself.
What
and
did you feel when you saw those photos of Danny?
Bro,
your version of yourself back then. Yeah.
I felt happy. Like, there's no word to say than my hard work paying off, and it's been for no government, no system, no bank account, just for my personal wealth and my wealth system. And when I saw the investment that I put in, I look back, I can be like, damn, this is a template for how I can grow other things. Because if I started with myself, I can start with anywhere else, which is why I pick up all these side quests. Because I know how I looked when I just started off lifting. I don't care how I looked when I just started off lifeguarding. I don't care how I look when I just started off personal training. I'm still going to document and take that time to video journal what I'm doing, because I know later in life I'm going to manifest more happiness. But I think people need to understand that in the Western world, or specifically London, it's a very fast world. The reason why you struggle with getting into like fitness and stuff is because that is not a high priority right now. I've seen a lot of people pick up their fitness when they're like 30. Arguably, is it the right point? Is it optimal point? I don't really care.
It's
as long
because
as
they
they're
made
happy.
a conscious decision that's like, yo, right now, in my 30s, it's me putting my health first.
It's like, yeah, I got my money up. I got a family now. You got the systems that are stable that make you think now you can go into like working out. Personally, that's just a socio-cultural dynamic. If the society demands you to prioritize family, career, and stuff first, then you go ahead and do family, career stuff first. Then you put the health on the backbone. How much you're sacrificing, I don't really know too much, but I would agree that doing it. I
would personally attest to that. I can't lie. Like for a guy who's been working as a graduate position in a year right now, it's intense, bro. Because really and truly, I've gone from having all my time in the day to, yo, I've got a few classes today, one seminar, then boom, I'm banging gym, and then I've got a football practice today. It's like I got a double workout in and some studies. Now it's like I clock out at 5. You shut that laptop lid. You might decompress for half an hour, eat lunch, eat dinner. Sorry about this time, and then by then you're just like, I'm mentally done, bro. I'm signed out for the day.
It's also like, where do you draw the line? Because a lot of people hearing this part would probably be like, oh yeah, that's definitely me because I've got way more priorities. But then there's also a thin line because it's like, at what point do you admit you're making excuses for yourself? Like, at what point do you admit that?
And the only thing that takes unfortunate and L in this situation is your body, your health, your mental health, and that's one thing I wanted to touch upon.
I told you that debt keeps accumulating.
That debt and the fact that we touched on the point of happiness is like the relationship between mental and physical health is, I think, so paramount now that we're deep in it. Because I can't lie, I feel like the times where was I most happiest? Oh, when I was at my fittest, my peakest, is because any activity I can do it.
I know,
like there's even times where I've chopped up with my homie. Man. I'm like, there's certain things that I did back then. People thought we were crazy, but I just knew I could do it. And now when you think about those things now, you're like, I need 6 months to train for that.
So the same way I say happiness is manifestation, sadness and depression is also that. Because most people get sad and depressed when they look back at all the time that they've wasted. There's a lot of time spent in spirals that you wish you didn't spend in. But if you didn't break that spiral, you wouldn't be grateful for breaking out and being able to reflect on it. That's if you get to that point, though. I think a lot of people don't realize that time is the value of everything. It's the way I perceive life. And as a quick tangent on this, because it will apply to the rest of the podcast, when you say to people who struggle to find that time, I say you only recognize the value of your time once you see how everyone else spends theirs. You need to broaden your perspective on life for you to understand the value of yours. Understandably, most people grow up in bubbles, so that's completely fine. But the way I'd like to analogize that, if you played video games, that's like one lobby. You grew up in one lobby with a certain amount of players. That's all you know. And you might be the top, like I said, the biggest fish in your pond. You might be the best player in your lobby. You might have the best KD. But you haven't gone out to other lobbies and you probably get smoked in another lobby. So this is why, like, I'm talking from first-person shooter games, like Modern Warfare stuff, right? So
we can relate to that personally.
You relate to that,
like,
I can do FIFA analogies if you need.
COD personal lobbies, and then you're like, we're going to go against this lobby right now? 8v8?
Like
man, them died in.
Like, you roll with your boys on, like, in some 5v5 search and destroy. You smoke the opposite team, you talk shit, and they're like, come 1v1 us. You start seeing some substitutions when you go to their lobby, and they're like, this guy wasn't in last game. This guy wasn't in last game. You 1v1, you get smoked, and you're like, these guys were like this in the public lobby.
With all the same clan tag as well.
The yellow clan tag, like
they set up.
Exactly.
But I'm going to something that you keep mentioning a lot, and this might be diving into conspiracy theories or whatever it may be, but you keep saying,
that's my Discord.
Who that I don't know?
That's my Finnish Discord friends.
Oh my god!
I told you
that I knew the Discord notification earlier. I was like, that's Discord.
Another thing to touch upon. If it wasn't for the internet and playing video games, I wouldn't have been able to broaden my perspective to random people like from Finland who show me their lives and what they wake up to on a fucking Sunday morning. What we wake up to in London is shit. But you see what other people wake up to, then you realize the games and the servers that you could be playing.
But then it's all about perspective as well, and it's also how you view your life. Because other people, because I heard, I've got some friends that came to London like less than a year ago, and they were like, oh my god, we want to live in London. We want to stay here. I was like, stay here? We're trying to get out. Like, what do you mean stay here? They're like, nah, you guys don't see it, but there's something really special happening right now.
I think it's the energy and the buzz, like the fact that
other people see it, but why don't we see it?
No. I think it's the fact that we're born and raised in a system and society where it's like we're used to the fast-paced nature. It's get on the train or you get missed at the stop. You know what I'm saying? Like you missed the stop. Whereas us, it's like, I've been so used to. oh, that's your bus. You gotta make that bus.
Got,
like I know we got one in 2 minutes, but it's like I want to make that one.
Yes.
And I think that's the London mentality where it's like we're always I want to get that first one. I want to get that first service. I want to get that first. I want to be the first person in my family to do it. My friendship group, my circle, my bubble.
It's like if you got
London is a very like
before you. It's like
someone did it before you. It's been done. I need to do something different.
Yeah, it's harsh because I think people just don't understand that you are the main character in your story. And again, this is why people talk like understandably. There's that clip of the guy on Joe Rogan and stuff. A lot of people argue that video games are a waste of time. That's fine. They can that's an understandable perspective. But from my personal perspective, I'll say this: if it wasn't for video games, especially like, you know, those kind of like GTA, free roam, like life ones, it wouldn't have helped me actually conceptualize how to structure life. And I'm not saying I'm living life like it's GTA, but in the same way,
every car to get here.
Yeah, I know you saw the lights.
Is that your car, Danny?
You saw my car. I went to Los Santos Customs. Like that's it. The whole
0 stars.
Like the whole system of your life is a game, so you get to pick which game you want to play. Like if people want to move to London, let them play the game of London. But like with any game, you'll get bored after some time, and if you really like the game, it will hold value in your life and stay with you. But I think some people don't recognize, same like what I did this year. I recognize, okay, now I'm working in that system of having a stable job, a stable income. I took a break from, you know, entrepreneurship, getting that stable income and that stable lifestyle. I was like, this isn't that fulfilling. Like, I can't believe some people do this for like years of their life. And throughout my time at university, I've been dabbling in all these experiences to know what I really want from university and what I want to do in life. And when it comes to those experiences, they all serve to give me experience points to help me level up my mindset so that I can see what I want to do.
I think that's one of the beauties of uni as well. I've discovered as well is like the different friendship groups, the different circles you encounter. You might be in I'll be honest, the first 2 years of uni, I was very reserved. I was in cultural societies mainly. Then I decided to join a sports team, and that's a whole new world. And I'm like, yo, I went from, we have the occasional Thursday social where we meet up with people who are like-minded.
Why are you looking at me for like?
No, I'm talking. No, bro.
I was waiting for you to tell me what societies you were in.
It was like that. It was like that wink. Like, oh, we know what happened on Thursday. Like,
no, but genuinely, the difference I realize is when you join something like a sports team, it isn't just a one commitment of, yo, I'm in a football team now, or I play American football. It's not. Nah, you got 2 weeks a day practice. Yeah. You have a sports social night. You have a team night. You might have a dinner occasionally. I'm like, yo, it's sort of a lifestyle, wouldn't you say? Like, it's kind of like.
But that's
the beauty of uni that I'm trying to say. It's like, yo, you're allowed to go to a circle where at first, for example, me, I was like, yo, I was more in cultural society, people that look like me, speak like me, like been around my environment.
It's cozy,
it makes sense. It's like, that's home. That's my home element. Because the lectures weren't home.
The
seminars weren't home. But it's like, yo, these man, they know what they know where I come from.
You have to set that up.
Yeah, people have that loyalty for no reason.
Well, it's in psychology, it's just comfort bias. Yeah. You're more likely to bias where you feel comfortable and less anxious, because as a survival tactic, you need a sort of rendezvous point to reorganize yourself every single point of the week, where it's like, okay, I know from this point in the week onwards, I've got something going on. Yeah. So that routine kind of breeds comfort, and that comfort is the zone as well. But again, that's what
no matter how tired or whatever you did last night, you're like, yo, I got practice at 8 with
that lifestyle routine.
It's lovely though.
It's you have to understand though, but that was down to a choice. You chose which societies you went into. You chose which lifestyles that came as a result of it. This is why I'm trying to help people understand. For me, I'm in this period of life, I'm kind of side quest king. Why? Because whilst I'm 20 to 30, I have the time to figure that shit out. I do not want to be side quest king when I'm 30 to 40. If anything, like even if you
want to achieve more milestones by that marker of your life.
Essentially, if you look at, for one thing, I analogize this with is the development of football in the UK. So if you don't know how it worked, is that people in the UK, the first international game was between England and Scotland, for example. Those were the international levels that they were popping off during the day and making everyone really gassed and excited. But thinking of how that started, it started with counties and clubs and factories. Like during the Industrial Revolution, factories would, because all it takes for football is a ball, really. You could get like from the butcher pig's, I think it's a pig's bladder or something. And you fill that up and kick it around. That's a ball.
They didn't have VAR back
That's
then.
Let alone footballs.
It's a bit harder now. It's a bit harder.
Shit, throwing about a pig skin in the back.
There's a lot of rules now.
And there was even hella corruption as well. Like all these systems are part of life. And that's
football firms, where do they come from?
No VAR, just pay off the ref. Like it's simple.
Well, but that's what I wanted to get into before, because we keep saying, oh, they tell you this is the average, or they don't want you to achieve this. What do we mean by that, and what's the purpose behind it? Why?
So
why would they not want us to be healthier and living a better life?
So a kind of perspective I've gotten from looking at
Who are they, first of all?
Who's they?
Who's they? Let's figure that one out. Illuminati.
just do this straight. Oh no, shit! That's a photo.
You did a square, bro.
I did a triangle. That's what it's been a minute because
what did they say? Rockefeller
Nation.
science. Rock Nation, baby.
No, I was doing it because of the Modern Warfare 2 like MLG trick shot community back in the day where they used to do like Illuminati.
Quicksilver.
They used to do like
edits.
Illuminati edits and shit. It was dumb. But
Yeah,
carry on. Back to what we were saying.
It's nerds.
Hey, prime YouTube days, bro. Prime YouTube days.
Definitely. That's what I mean. There has to be those like crazy edits. Sorry, back to your question. Remind me real quick. Who are they? Okay.
Who are you?
When I say they, this is, bro, if I never get a job in this system, this is proof. This is proof. I think they is the healthcare system because what I witnessed going into private healthcare and being a customer and friend to those working in the NHS, the way I kind of see things structured, that everything is slowly being privatized. Why? Because we live in essentially a privatized city. London,
capitalist society.
It's the peak of capitalism essentially for most economies, and more or less so, it's got a ton of corruption because the nickname for our capital is the money laundromat of the world. So if we're the laundromat,
New York's got Big Apple. We've got what?
Money laundromat of the world.
We're the laundromat.
Yeah, we're the money laundromat.
Bro.
Because think about all these buildings we have to do all these financial operations, and we have no land really to spend it and invest it on. So
they literally say Saudi. Canary Wharf is like Saudi Qatari money.
Yeah, because
you've got the Shard, which is also like the Russian oligarchs that own the mansions. It's like interesting. British society, or its upper echelon, is all owned by foreign entities.
But that's what I mean. The upper echelons are really kind of like have the biggest influence from foreign entities. And regardless of that, when you look at the healthcare system, it's a byproduct of that. It serves to keep people at working. Well, okay, for the record, I think the NHS. I think the NHS works to keep people at working health. Private healthcare gets people back to functional health or happy health, for example.
That's that. What was it, bro? Spoken word right now. Say it again for the people at the back. Come on.
I do, from private healthcare experience, I do not believe that the NHS as an entire entity, and considering the people
it's known as the National Health Service.
But what is that service? It's so again generic that it's hard to specify.
Subpar.
Well, I would say it depends on the hospital to hospital basis. So from what I've I learned from being on the cruise ship and speaking to people from North England who I would have never normally communicated with before, I always asked them about the healthcare system and how it works for them up there. It seems to be up in the north, in the poorer areas, like culturally, the north and the south have always had that divide because the north was kind of used for its economic value and never given a good return on investment by the south. That resentment they have, the northern resent for the south is very valid as a context. But in terms of that power dynamic we've now established, it affects a lot. And it's like a drip down feed system where the most rich hospital is probably going to have the best healthcare services. Why? Because all the equipment is sold by private entities and corporations. Like, we've got this MRI machine. We'll slap up the price because we know you need this machine. Do you remember when Martin Shkreli increased the price of a HIV/AIDS life-saving medication? So Martin Shkreli was the owner of a medical company in America. So this doesn't apply to US. He was the owner of a medical company in the US who had medication, life-saving medication for AIDS and HIV, which are normally terminal illnesses. Like you will die from HIV or AIDS if you have HIV or AIDS. The life-saving medication for that, he took ownership of the company and shot up the price by 3,500%. So obviously, what can you do when it's life-saving medication though?
You got to pay for it. You ain't got a choice. It's
but obviously,
die or basically pay for your treatment.
But that as an extreme system is what I'm using as an analogy for the UK system, where yes, you can go to the NHS and get good healthcare by just paying. Well, you can get, it depends who you get in physio, for example, who your physio is, but you're more likely to get a better quality physio when you pay private healthcare and a little bit more money than the one that's just kind of in the system getting his experience up. Yeah. When I was working in private healthcare, I asked most of the people, my clinicians who I got along well with, I was like, why do you not want to, for context, my private healthcare was physio, osteo, chiro, psychological evaluations, performance testing, and blood lactate monitoring and stuff. So it kind of covered all specialities
in London's West End of Harley Street. Which is known as, basically, for those who don't know at home, is the private. You ever want private treatment or healthcare in London, you go to Harley Street, essentially.
Yeah, Harley Street is like the spot, and it's like the Silicon Valley for tech,
for health,
for physiology.
Yeah.
So this system, when I look at it from people paying, I can say the number, £150 for 30 minutes. That's how much a company is taking for someone's time. If you want to analogize to someone earning £10 an hour, we're going back to the time value ratio. Imagine working 15 hours of your life to get 1 hour of treatment that could probably provide 24 hours of relief.
So it's basically the pain and sweat that they're putting into their shift isn't even equivalent like an hour of their health.
Yeah, exactly. So the business model is taking people who need that urgent care, because remember, this is healthcare. These are things people need. This is a basic. When people don't have the money to pay for that stuff, they have to go to the NHS and get put on what? Like
a wait list of 18 months.
For how long? Yeah,
18 months minimum.
Like, it's ridiculous.
I read even a study myself where it was on a news article that it said that prior to COVID-19, in 2019, the NHS wait list was at a certain amount. Yeah. It's either tripled or like doubled or
18
quadrupled.
hours now, 19 hours?
Like it's ridiculous now since COVID. So it's like we're at the stage in society where now it's like the NHS isn't looking feasible in the future, but there's a lot of people that, again, due to their jobs, due to their circumstances, due to what life's given them, they can't afford those amenities. And I can't lie, we've got to be fortunate for those of us who get to experience internships there. Or, for example, myself, like my job gives me health benefits. I get a premium each month where it's like I can go to AXA Health and exactly like get my like a full body check, and it's like, oh, you've got this app where you can hit up a doctor and you get an appointment within 15 minutes or 2 days, depending what you need. And it's like, look at the difference between the public service, the NHS that's out there right now and existing, and it's like, yo, this is what our mums, our uncles, our parents, the elder generation rely on, because that's all they know. The National Health Service, you pay taxes, you're entitled to free healthcare. But the healthcare they're receiving, unfortunately, is subpar. And I can't lie, for me as well, like maybe I gotta be fortunate, I gotta take my blessings and say alhamdulillah. But for me, it's like I see my mum, I see my brother, they got hospital appointments, and they're like, oh, the doctor's saying this, and it's like they've already made up their minds and decision before they've even had the consultation. It's like you're not treating the person as a person. It's like you're a statistic. I've got 10 other people I got to see in the next 3 hours. I got 10 minutes as a GP, bro. My GP right now, well, my family's GP, you've got to call either at 8 a.m. to get an appointment, and it's a call. And the call determines whether you get called into the clinic. Yeah. Do you know how ridiculous that is? It's like, you can't even get your, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't even lie. When I was growing up as a kid, as a teen, as a primary school kid, I remember my mom saying, oh, your asthma's kicked up a bit. Cool, you're getting an asthma check. You should book it same week. You go to the appointment. You get your little peak flow test. And now look at it. It's like, yeah, we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 working days if we've got an appointment. If we got an appointment. The NHS isn't, I think, I'll be honest,
in our lifetime,
maybe it's a pessimist mindset, or maybe it's because I'm fortunate enough now that my job takes care of me, but it's like, I genuinely don't see it surviving, and there's been a push and urgency from myself where I'm like, Mom, we need to find a plan that covers us like as a family plan. There's something that I need to see that you and my little brothers get covered on, because I don't like what I'm hearing. I genuinely don't like that my mum's like, I had a call with a doctor and I'm more pissed than I started off with. What do you mean you're pissed? It's a doctor. You're meant to get treatment. You're an individual. You're that individualized solution plan. It's like they get given generic medication. This doesn't work. We'll try this.
You wait all night at the NHS and they just give you some ibuprofen.
Bro, any family member that goes into A&E now, I just feel anybody that goes to A&E now, I feel bad for. What's the waiting time in A&E now? It's ridiculous, bro.
So I don't want to get like too political about it, but in terms of the NHS surviving or not, I say from any managerial. So my context for this is coaching. When you see coaching coaches, coaching culture from the top trickle down and affect the lower levels. This is why we got to understand that as a government system, which we know our government is highly corrupt or highly lobbyist, and there's a lot of money flowing around Parliament essentially for really mundane shit, for example. You need to think about that as an influence on the people managing the system. Ultimately, the people managing the system are just trying to get a buck. They will replace the next, if they want to leave their job because they feel personal guilt or something, they'll replace them with someone else. That position is a position to be paid to do certain things to keep that, whoever's employing them comfy, essentially, keep them cozy. So one thing that the NHS gets kind of like pillaged on is medical contracts. And we're talking contracts for medical equipment that, again, is life-saving.
Could you explain that for like the people at home, like what that means, what medical contracts entail, and the sort of, procedures that you can get through those decisions? Because I think this is all new terminology, like even for myself, like I'm thinking,
wow,
for those at home, break it down for them.
Yeah,
bro.
This is crazy. So, let's say every scalpel that gets used in a surgery, every mask, PPE, whatever. I think actually that's a good place to start, really. So let's say the equipment, there's always specialist equipment for specialist fields and industries where, especially in the medical sector, you have to be very refined and precise with everything because someone's life could be on the line from a mismeasurement. And obviously, you can value that however much you really want because, yes, it's life-saving equipment. Philosophically, should you value it? How much are you going to value someone's life for, really? Like, how much you can't just give it away for free because it takes time and resource to build it. But as exemplified again from an extreme scenario, the PPE situation, we know that there was a ton of money, unsurprisingly, laundered really, by agreeing to money through contracts and then that equipment not showing up, but the money disappearing and
not usable equipment.
Okay, so clearly someone's benefited from this contract, let's say. But it's not been the person who's supposed to be receiving the goods and those goods aren't being given to the people. Who's getting the win from it? Yeah. Well, the guy, whoever made the deal, you don't see the contract. You don't see what percentages they give to each other. So as far as we can know, they could have written like 90%, 10%. I'm not saying that's how it works. I haven't seen that. But I do know that arguably a lot of money went missing during pandemic. And you have to ask yourself, where does it go? Especially in what we call the money laundromat of the world. Well, it probably got fucking laundered because it was just dirty money.
Best friends of MPs getting contracts, getting good paychecks.
It's quite, I think as a system, it's natural to human instincts that you're going to, make a deal with someone who's your friend. But if you can essentially rent a friend or buy a friend for a couple months to sign off a contract, is that really friendship or is that just kind of like corrupt, dirty business where,
nepotism?
Ali, yeah, like Ali, let me go take you for a meal. And whilst we're at this meal, I'm not telling you, but I'm going to plan to propose a deal for you whilst you're happy and eating your meal and having a wine and a little bit drunk. Like,
it's someone you know, someone you assume is a friend, so therefore your guards are down, your evaluations, you doing your impact assessments. Okay, what's the value I'm getting for this? What's the value the people who are getting this service are going to get? But you ain't even thinking of that.
But that's when I was talking to you about bubbles and lobbies and communities, imagine that community at the top, like, the influence and power they have up there and where you are, how much your opinion would matter to those guys at the top where they've got their friends' interests and everyone's in each other's pockets. Again, that's a massive call on the corruption in the UK and whatever, but understandably, if you see it as a financial system, you look at the economics of these systems of where this money goes. If you were in a position of power like that, you'd probably take it too, because again, there's also the fear of trying to push away from it, because you turn down someone else's deal, you start getting blacklisted. It's a community cohesion thing. And if you want to be the ugly duck or the one who plays devil's advocate and riots out, you're just going to get cut off from the rest.
You're not going to survive. It's like, okay, so this guy doesn't...
Essentially, you're trapped, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It is the trap. But that's what I think one thing... recently, I just watched Top Boy. And again, we're talking about systems here, institutions. The healthcare system, we can agree that, from my example, is probably quite skunked because there's a lot of money going around and it's not going to what we should be getting, especially if that's what people need. But one thing I found quite interesting from watching the Top Boy series, obviously, if you grow up in London, it's not specifically accurate, but in terms of gang culture and the way it's portrayed, it is kind of like that. You've got the hierarchy and the business structure to it.
That just keeps going around.
And essentially, I think it's quite ironic how much London as a city tries cracking down on crime, on like gang culture and crime culture, without realizing it's in principle, a copy of business and entrepreneurship, because you have one guy at the top who's essentially, if we're talking pyramid scheme here, who just splits the money down to the lower guys, and everyone somehow gets a drink.
Everybody eats. Yeah.
Everybody eats. Yeah. But in the same way, in a business sense, so for, let's say, banks, for example, they're just longer standing, more wealth garnered situations that have their hands and reach so far deep that they can kind of keep themselves immune, give themselves that kind of like political immunity.
I mean, yeah, when we look at the history of the banking system throughout the whole world, not just the UK
at one point they killed and pillaged some people to get money.
It's the same families who've run these banks for generations. There's a reason why they have those names and those...
And I think it's just ironic that we always call these conspiracy theories and stuff like that. But that's why I always say
it's almost factual, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you look
are they really just theories?
Yeah, like I think to demystify if it's a theory, you have to put yourself in that person's shoes. Like let's say it's like 1600s. I've just colonized a part of Africa.
Yeah.
I've gotten in today's money, maybe 2 trillion worth of wealth from being that colonizer.
Yeah.
Am I just going to give that money that I've colonized and all that stuff that I've good? Am I just going to keep it in my family, or am I going to give it to the rest of the society? Like, most people keep it in their blood, in their family, because that's animal instincts. Like
survival of the fittest.
But this is another interesting conversation I had when I was on a cruise ship. So I met someone who's an ocean spotter for dolphins and orcas, because they're endangered and we want to track where they are in the world. So she gets to go on the ship for every cruise, and for certain oceans that it travels across, they want her to collect data on the ocean, like dolphins and orcas. She got a very intricate system for it. When I asked her, when she sees the way the world has moved and the way the human population is kind of taking over, killing off the animal kingdom to kind of be prime predator, does she see that as the survival of the fittest? In terms of like that same philosophy, because the fittest race,
we're killing ourselves essentially.
Yeah, but we're killing everything with it. So if we're going down, everyone else is going down, type of thing. So that's like an animal instinct.
You seen Seaspiracy?
Yeah. No, I didn't watch all of it, but I fell asleep during it, and I started off and I was like, yeah, this is mad. Yeah, but I think all these systems are a result of people. When I spoke to this woman, about the system of where is it survival of the fittest, I looked back. She said, well, you got to look back historically and realize, is it really survival of the fittest, or is it just kind of like a facade that we can use to say money is the value of the fittest? Like, are we gonna give whoever's the richest, are they really the fittest? No, not really. But are they playing that psychological game? Yes, but we're still humans. We have human needs, we have physical needs, like I was talking about, the exercise and the fitness. We have those needs, except what the society is demanded by. They don't need physical health for the majority of people. They need people to keep the economy running, keep the people functioning.
Keep turning the bigger machine, basically, and the grand scheme of things.
This is one thing that I saw, when you go to the NHS with an issue, they ask you, are you back to working health? Like, can you go back to work? If you're safe to return to work, then fine, you can keep the economy moving. But in private healthcare, they'll ask you, do you feel 100%? Like, we're not letting you go I wouldn't want you going away unless you're 100%. So that's kind of pushing people to the point of true fulfillment, rather than letting them meet your arbitrary standard. Like, you've set that standard that you're healthy.
Come back full circle here.
But that's from the top. That's a cultural thing, right? So the same way we say, oh, well, nowadays in London, you probably need 30k to live comfortably. If you've saved up enough for maybe like a year or two's rent, fine, you can live comfortably on 30k a year. But your life is longer than 1 or 2 years. Your life is 80 years. And within that time span, how much of that time are you going to spend slaving away, building the bank account, when you could be building your kind of personal wealth and personal adaptability to any situation that occurs? So you're not pressed by the confines of what could be a money situation. For example, for me, I know I'm not in a position where I'm going to be making tons of money. That is a plan at one point, but I know in terms of the exponential or non-exponential curves, life, if I start putting those systems in place, then I will garner the wealth. But if I put myself in a system that's already established for me, I'm going to be limited to the confines of that system.
Slave to the system, as they say.
And whether it's the trap, the same way boys are selling, and then they get to the position where obviously now you've got so much legal pressure on you, and you're doing so, but you're making so much money. How do you confine? Like, how do you draw the line at when you're going to leave? Because you've seen like in Top Boy when Deshane tries leaving, you never really leave the game. There's always something that you get involved with because something from the past that comes and bites you back. The same way though for these banks and their systems like, let's talk 2008 financial crisis. They run it for the build up to that was years in the making. Those were
it
debts.
Wasn't a coincidence.
They were debts that they were not paying off. Those were like giving out ratings for mortgages. It was inflated collateral trading derivatives or something like that. Or
it was something to do with like
collateral
people
mortgages.
with very, I'd say, bad credit is the term to use. Were like they were handing out mortgages like they were nothing. Basically, none of the background checks, none of the
There's a
audit
film on,
checks. What's it called?
The Big Short.
The Big Short, because
Short,
Michael Berry, one of the financial winners of that situation, he shorted the housing economy, and people are like, how the fuck can you short? How can you bet on the housing economy going down? This is America,
and the housing economy is that one thing that's meant to be a staple of society. Buy a house, it eventually reaps you profits, sell it down the line or rent it. You're getting that passive income. He betted against it, which is mad. He betted against it
because the way what he did was he did his research and found out that the ratings they gave to the mortgages that they were selling off to people were just completely inflated. So if
eventually that's going to burst.
Exactly. So inflation is a term that's both metaphorically and speech, how do I say it? Like in regular speak makes sense, where inflation is like, I don't know, like is metaphorically correct, because if you keep inflating something like a balloon, it's gonna burst at one point. And that's why I think there is with the situation we're in right now. We're reaching a point where we've got a burst because all that money from pandemic, just all the sins committed then aren't just gonna sit away with you. They will come back the same way. For me, in my body, if I don't train for like 2 years, those sins will come back. It will pay its dues. And I think, again, when you take care of your own system and you micromanage your own body, you will understand management systems of an institutional or systemic level. So this is kind of a bit of a tangent now. And the reason I say this is because just to help you understand how you manage your system, there's multiple systems across your body. That's why I say I'm a biomechanist. Every joint, let's say the ankle joint has its own system, the knee joint has its own system, the hip joint has its own system. They all function as individual systems that create things like movement. Like you only run if you can coordinate your toes, your heel, your ankle, your knee, your hip, and then your upper torso. But people can still run if they aren't fully coordinated. But again, that's the kind of potential thing we're talking about. What is the potential that you could reach if you really check and hold all your systems accountable? Then you realize, damn, on the management system, you're not managing a lot and you're just getting by fine, okay. Imagine like institutionally, how many people aren't managing like to the best of their ability, but are getting fine, okay. The same way we're prone to doing that to ourselves, who's to say we're not prone to doing that on a systemic level? Because there's more factors you have to take care of. If you can't take care of all the factors such as, let's say, the gut bacteria, in your gut biome, right? It's called a biome because there's so many mini bacterial worlds living in here. If you don't take care of those, you will encounter a bunch of issues. But instead of like learning and being educated upon that, where do you go? To the NHS. And what do they give you? Just some acid reflux pills, and that's supposed to sort it. No,
bro,
those
honestly,
are temporary solutions to long-term fixes.
The saddest part of this conversation is we can, I guess, wake people up, get them engaged in the conversation and in the movement and conspiracies as they may see them. But it's like, until you experience it, it's not a fact. It's just a study. It's just another part of life.
But
like,
this is why I say,
I ain't got it.
Do it with your body. Like, do it with your body and see how much of your life you can fulfill and potentialize, and then realize how much potential there is out in the world. I think for me, you asked why I started training, right? So I started training because I hated how I looked. I was so, like, growing up in my area, I went to a white primary school, then went to like a dominated black and brown primary school, a secondary school. I was always a minority in all of my situations, and not like as a sub story, but obviously in terms of perspective wise, I see no one like me who looks fine older. I don't even see people like, I never really met Vietnamese people till I was like 18, like 20, going to university and finding those people. In my area, I was constantly assimilating and adopting other people's cultures, because that's how you get involved in the community, and that's how you get through.
How you survive it.
Yeah, how you survive the community, right? Yeah. So if you play these games all the time, you're going to look back and realize, wait, I don't know what I will look like in the future. So, and if I don't like myself now, that gives me no hope, because I have no end goal to set a perspective on. I have no ideal to chase. So through working out and going to the gym, that's why I started, because I knew I've seen other people get better just by themselves. They not comparing David Lade to Justin Bieber just because they're both white dudes with blonde hair. No, it's comparing David Lade when he was 14 to compare to David Lade when he was 18, and that's his transformation. But I was like, oh, you know what? It took them about 5 years, so let me dedicate 5 years to myself. I know I'm gonna hate it, but I know also if I do it for 5 years, I can get a good chance at feeling better. Yeah. So that's when I said the happiness is manifesting thing, because shit, it sucked. Growing up feeling like you were ugly all the time. And you were doing so many things to compensate and try and take charge of your lack of self-efficacy or your lack of self-confidence. And what you needed to build confidence, which is what we teach in sports science, but in sports psychology, to build confidence, you need efficacy. And efficacy is the confidence in skills. So once you have self-efficacy and you know your skill set, then you can start building confidence. So for me, it was starting off with the rawest thing, which was my outside. I didn't realize the internal shit needs to get done, which is why I don't, just for the record, I don't criticize people if they're still figuring out their youth 20-year-old at a time or whatever, and are not prioritizing all the time in the gym. I just did it because I had time to spend, and I wanted to dedicate myself to something, because that's how much it was crushing me. That insecurity was crushing me so bad that I was like, to not feel insecure, I'm going to put myself in the gym, 2-3 hours every single day after school for years, and do the same system. And because school was just straightforward, just go to school, get your grades, and fuck off, fine. But for the meantime, what was I going to do during after school? Well, could I just chill go chill on Benson Estate, or could I go to the chicken shop and eat food and get fat? You can see people were a result of their actions, and you can see the kids who went to the mosque and took care of themselves, because my school was right next to a mosque. I went to Heathland School in Hounslow. Right next to it is a mosque. So the cultural identity of that school was majority Muslim, because on Fridays, what would people do lifestyle-wise on a Friday? They go to Jummah. They ain't going to the pub. They ain't going out for a drink. They're feeling holy for the weekend, and then I see them continue going to the mosque on the weekend. I'm like, rah. As a perspective thing, as me as a kid, I'm like, that's a very committed lifestyle. So what could I commit myself to? Because I didn't want to be like the guys who were uncommitted and just being on the roads. So I went to the gym, and by working on myself, I got those little pumps, and I felt more confident. I saw glimpses of how happy I could be. And then I kept chasing that ideal, because that's why I think when people train, and there's a lot of currently in about 2 months ago in the sports science field, everyone's saying, stop training for mind-muscle connection, stop training for feeling. It's not going to be a good indicator for hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. For the record, I think that's complete bullshit.
I think that's BS.
Your feeling is the most important thing about when you're training. If you don't feel good while training, you're not going to perform great. Do whatever it takes.
That's why I left the gym.
That's
I actually don't like being here.
But
I didn't just completely stop training. I went back to boxing, and I haven't boxed in 7 years, bro. But I was like, bro, being back in boxing, even though I'm not meeting my goals
expectations
in terms of looks
and
but in terms of how I feel when I'm boxing, it's completely different to how I feel when I'm lifting weights. I'm just gonna stick to this. I don't even care how I look anymore. I'm like, and naturally I feel like boxing did that to me, because I was like, I was so focused on how I look, I stopped caring about how I look when I got back into the boxing gym, because it made me realize looks ain't everything, and
but you have to go through it.
I would rather go through this, but again, everyone's different. Everyone's got their thing.
I think everyone's different, but we should all walk the similar paths to have a comprehensive understanding.
I think you won't figure it out until you try and put yourself in that
That's one of those things you have to try
exactly that. You've got to go through your journey and expectations and be like, oh shit, I didn't do what I wanted to do, but this is where I want to be. And that's another point I want to touch on. I feel like we've gone through your motivations and the mindsets and the attitude behind Danny Pham. But tell us more about for example, I feel like you're a person who's a go-getter, an adventurer, a person who's willing to try something new. Tell us more about your time on the cruise, being a lifeguard, because I feel like we've stepped over that element, and it's that's a big element of you. I feel like being a lifeguard is one thing, then doing a job where you get to experience a lot of cultures and different, like you said, societies and circles and bubbles, because the boat itself, isn't that a bubble? Do you want to tell us more about it?
So I started working on a cruise ship just this summer. I picked up a 6-week contract. I picked up one at the start, but they lost my luggage, so I lost some paperwork, and it was just supposed to be 1 week. But instead of getting 1 week, I just got a 2-day trip to Malta. So I couldn't complain. They paid for me to go the next day. So I got a couple nights in Malta, and I just enjoyed myself.
Nice.
The reason I picked this up, though, again, kind of ties back into the life philosophy thing. What you need to understand, what I want people to understand in how to perceive your life and have clarity in where you're going, is you need to understand, like a video game, your life has a bunch of checkpoints and levels that you will reach. Your playtime is not an indicator of that though. Your experience points are what actually make you level up. If you're spending time just idle in the lobby, you're not playing the game, you're not getting any experience points, you're not going out and getting any experience. When you say I'm a go-getter, I really do appreciate that. But humbly, I just think I'm out here to experience things, because with every experience, good or bad, there's experience points. That's what games teach you. You still get, even if you fail a mission, you might get less points than you get from doing a mission, but you still get something from it.
Yeah.
And whether you know are appreciating it now or appreciating it later, you will need to appreciate that to understand the process of why you should go through it. So for example, let's say that extra £50 you saved in your pocket came to like help you pay off a parking ticket that would have been like really peak 2 years down the line. You can't say that the experience that led you to keeping that £50, you should have spent it back then, because it could have been the reason it saved you in the future. And the way you should curate your experiences is doing them to get the most experience and enjoyment out of them. You want as most points that can grow you, and to understand what will grow you is normally things that aren't in your comfort zone. So breaking out of your comfort zone is completely normal. But once you realize, like from the gym, when I started off for doing that for eight years, every time I tried a new exercise, I might get mocked, I might get support, I saw all the possibilities from just stepping out of my comfort zone. So it couldn't get worse than being in the gym, where you get those same feelings. In principle, you can get negative feedback, you can get positive feedback, or you could have neutral feedback, or you can get support because you're interacting with people. Same way in life, you can get the same thing, whether it's outside of the gym environment or not. You will just receive those types of people, and it's up to you to see how much experience you want to take from them, or how much experience points you get from interacting with these people. And being for me, I got, like, for example, the position I'm in right now in this podcast, I got here because of a friend. I got here because of good energy and people. Same thing with the cruise ship company. I was good friends with a girl who went to the gym back when I was 16, 17.
Wow.
16, 17. And she ended up working on a cruise ship company. And I was like, yo, what the hell? How'd you get this job? Because I knew she was a nurse. She also made that conscious decision to leave the NHS and be like, you know what? Why would I work in a 4-wall hospital where I don't see the sun all day when I can go be doing the same job on a cruise ship? She recognized the game she was playing, and she chose to join a different server. But the skills still applied. And this is what I say to people. When it comes to going out and getting things, go get things that you want in the moment. Do what it takes and see how far your want takes you. Then you will discover what your need is, because you will chase out all your wants. Those are natural. Whatever you chase out of lack is natural to your existence. You have to realize what you felt like you were lacking on. Go chase, like growing up, go chase what you felt like you were lacking on, whether it's partying, drinking, clubbing, or just reading a book or something. Some people go through all these phases. I openly embraced all my phases. Everyone in primary, secondary school can attest to it. I was always like, I used to build my own skateboards. I used to sell and like flip vapes and refurbish them. I used to like paint customized shoes. I used to nah, just heroin. No,
black tar.
No, but I got into the whole like politics side very early. I went through all these phases because, you know what, at the end of the day, one thing my dad always said to me, and this has to be attributed to my dad, he always says, just try it. Is like go ahead, Joy Long. And in Vietnamese that just means have fun, like it's whatever type of thing, right? So Joy Long, go just
explore.
Just go explore. Just go experience it.
Dad don't give a shit about
it. Yeah, that's how I don't know. My dad like it's like with spicy sauce. Like with spicy sauces as a kid, you're like, shit, they're proper spicy. I'm like, Dad, is it nice? Because I've always seen you eating it. He's like, why don't you just try it? And I'm like, you're like, Joe, try it, Joe Long. And I never tried it until I was like 16. Then I was like, damn, I wish I tried it. That's another thing where you could be like, time wise, oh, I wish I tried it sooner because
I could have been having this the whole time.
Yeah, I could have been having this the whole time.
But again, gastric by now.
Hey, you know the South Asian community.
Maybe it's good.
Yeah, man. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to getting jobs like cruise ship life, you have to get comfortable stepping out your comfort zone. And for me, stepping out your comfort zone was one thing, but you also realize when you step out your comfort zone, if it wasn't for me stepping out my comfort zone and asking this girl who was working out in the gym like to be friends and stuff, because like when I was a kid, I was just building my community in the gym. I was just saying hi to people. I knew nothing better. I'm gonna say hi rather than be rude, because I know what it's like to get, to be rude back to me. By just having those experiences at like 15, 16, it gave me opportunities when I was like 21, 22. And you see, that's what else is like, I call it watering your garden. You plant a seed 4 years ago, and if it comes to fruition
the fruits of your labor come how many years later?
But it's not really labor. It's just the energy you carry. And that's kind of like why I say I'm a little bit spiritual in it, but it's the presence you carry. You're going to be remembered for your energy. Like whatever conversations you had, it's not going to be remembered as much as the energy and presence you give to those around you. So if you carry around a good presence, you're going to get blessings from it. But you only recognize that once you live long enough, because then you're going to get time to see the return on your investment.
But that's why studying is important as well, because you can also see everything in hindsight, like what other people's experiences are, and apply it to yourself.
But the studying part is still it's still all encompasses the experiences. If you're going to experience and watch someone's story, you're going to see how that experience ends. If you want to choose that experience, you can do that experience. Like with cruise ship life, I saw my friend doing it on the ship and going to all these wonderful countries and places. At that time in my life, I had the time and I was like, yes, I can invest myself in this opportunity. So I did it. Just signed. All I'd recommend first though is for any quick clip actually, for any boy or any person who's 16 to 18 years old, get a lifeguarding qualification. If we're talking economics, if we're looking in London specifically, it's a massive concrete city. Where the hell do we make pools? Where are the pools? Most people don't
leisure centers, apparently.
Exactly. So as a system, these leisure centers are happily training people to be lifeguards because yes, you can build the system, and you can build these pools, but what is a necessity of that? The same way the medical industry has these necessities, it needs people to guard those pools. So lifeguarding is a job that will pay you probably in London anywhere from £10 to £13 an hour. And as a kid, if you're working from 16 years old, you don't pay tax on that. That is one of the most important jobs I would recommend to anyone, because not only do you get fit because you have to reach a certain fitness criteria, but you also get into a working system from a very young age. You earn very good money for your age and you earn it tax free as well. That's a complete hack for the kids at my leisure center. The guys who I work with who are 16, they're raking it in and they save enough to then go enjoy themselves at university. Exactly. That's an experience I would love to share.
Life gem right there from
this Coach is a life gem. Yeah,
I guess that's one piece of advice. But just to quickly wrap it up, what are 3 pieces of advice that you can give to anyone starting their fitness journey?
Find ways to enjoy movement. Let me do number 1. Okay, we'll do number 1. What worked for me was setting personal challenges and goals that you want to achieve. Forget completing a full workout at this point. I'm talking when I started, I just wanted 50 press-ups. I wanted 50 squats and 50 sit-ups without being able to do that without break. That's all I wanted, really. And over time, that was a long-term goal that I finally achieved, and then started progressing onto little ones.
So that's what you meant by bodyweight workouts. It wasn't even full calisthenics.
No, literally, your workout is you working out how to move. I couldn't do a press up properly after 2-3 months, but I still spent time in my room every night just doing. All I did was 1 set before I fell asleep, 1 set to max, and then counting how many. And every single day I sort of get 1 or 2 more, 1 or 2 more, 1 or 2 more.
That's that 1%.
And that's that 1% every day. Same thing with my squats and myself. So start off by setting just challenges that you want. If you see something on Instagram, you see a guy doing a human flag, learn everything you can to try and do that human flag and realize how hard it is. Or if you see a guy doing 50 press-ups and he looks really good, you might think you'll end up like him if you do 50 press-ups. That's still good motivation. You have an objective in mind that you have to set. In sports psychology, it's SMART targets. If you don't set a target that's SMART in the criteria, then you're not going to... I don't remember what each letter of the anagram means, SMART, but if you Google what a SMART target is, follow that template and you will have a very reliable goal to set in the future. Second point is enjoy it. If you're not doing it, and if you're doing it and you're not enjoying it, there's no point for you to keep going on it, because you're just not going to have the motivation to keep going. And when I say enjoy it, you need to be able to enjoy the gratitude of your work. If you're not grateful for seeing 1%, 2% improvements every single day, not only will that affect you later in life, but if you're missing that in your perspective, you should pick that up very quickly to see that life is a growth process. And my third piece of advice would be trust it document your journey. It has to be document your journey, because I think if you don't look back for where you could be in 1 week's forward and compared to 1 week's back, you won't realize how often your body changes. And you will try to take all the best photos to make yourself look in the best way possible. But all you're doing is helping yourself objectify an ideal. Yes, you're going to pose and turn a certain way. We all seen it. Everyone pre-puberty tries posing in the way that they just ended up looking naturally after puberty anyway. Like life will bless you with your age. I think a lot of people are too stressed with whilst they're young on their appearance, and that's very natural. Maybe it's a bit systemic with forcing kids into these like hyper dense situations where everyone's comparing themselves to each other, and you know children are highly neurotic. You're putting a bunch of neurotics, like a bunch of chaos in one environment. Tons of trauma and negatives are going to come out of that. But if you want to be the one who survives that, you need to keep taking photos of yourself and recognize that it's going to change at some point. But it's not going to be changing in what you imagine your current world to be. In that school world, that life is not changing. Sucker it up, find a system, a routine like I did, which was the gym, to vent or catharsize your energy and be able to have a system that you can manage that next 5 years of your life. Because let's say you're 15 and in secondary school, 10 years of your life have been education pretty much. And all you know is education. But when you realize after education, there's a whole bigger world and life to live. Or if you go to the gym and you see a dude who's 80 still kicking it, looking fit, you're like, damn, you got hella time in life. Don't sweat. Like, don't have to worry. Stuff, you don't have to sweat about the small things. You just find systems that get you through. Because if you aim to live a long life, then you have the time to do everything. Yeah. But if you keep burning up over the short things, you're going to kill yourself before you have time to live. And that's what kind of people do in London anyway. Again, you live that fast life. The faster you live, the quicker you die. The quicker you burn. You can speed run the game. Feel free to speed run the game. Get your bag and, you know, fuck off to some northern part of the country and never see anyone. But is that really a life you want to live, or is it just I think every
journey you want to undertake, essentially.
The experiences do matter, and every experience you go through, good or bad, will still benefit you. It will still add XP points to your character. You just may not see it. You need to live enough life. I think for me, and most friends that could agree, is after 20, you're like, damn, okay, 2 decades. Here's what I've achieved. You will realize what some people have achieved in 2 decades, and then you'll realize what other people have done in 4 decades, or like 3 decades, another, 8 decades, whatever people pick. You can see their journey after. You can finally kind of, section off yours. I think one thing that kind of normally comes to a surprise for most people that when they hit 20 though, was like, damn, we're at 20, but this kid's been working since 10. When we were 10 to 10, 11, 12, 13. I just saw him as a guy in school. I didn't know he was doing all this behind the scenes work.
Side missions, exactly.
He was doing all these side missions. I didn't know he was doing that investment in himself. Yeah. For me, I think it was being like, the camera ready thing's a really important part of loving how you look, because if you can't, a lot of people, everyone's seen that trend. You take a photo of yourself and you flip the camera, and that's apparently how most people see you, right?
And the app's called Be Real, and that's apparently being real.
Oh no, I'm talking about when you just take a selfie and you flip the camera.
It's inverted.
Invert it. Like when you take a selfie on your phone.
I thought you meant it's showing the back and the.
No, I know it sounded like that, but I'm talking about when people take a photo of themselves and they really cringe and there's a horrible pain.
But that's how they actually look.
That's how they actually look,
and it's not like a mirror.
And it's the understanding of, oh my god, I actually look like this to other people, and I think I look ugly. But people need to realize that trust me, when I first took that photo of myself when I was like 12 years old in the bathroom,
I was like, what the fuck?
I was like, oh my god, my face is like my face is like this. like what? And then I think over the years, I finally got comfortable just because I saw it and I was like, you know what? So I actually, it's just conditioning.
I think that was me until recently, and it was because of the podcast.
But you see yourself.
I didn't have a choice but to see how people look at me, and it's not like Snapchat where it's like a mirror selfie.
Yes.
But on this, it's like it's how people are actually looking at me, and then I just got used to it. And I'm like, I don't even.
But it's all about perspective, though. Yeah. The experience.
I think it's because when you grow up looking in the mirror, that's how you see yourself.
That's what it's conditioning,
and
psychological
you get so
conditioning.
used to seeing that's how you look like, that's how you're meant to look like, and then when you see what you actually look like, we're like, hold on, wait a minute.
Quick question: are you guys familiar with something called Bandura's social condition or Bandura's conditioning model?
No.
So that's one thing that's never been talked about in your world. That's crazy. That's what I mean. This is a topic I picked up in psychology. So one thing, just for context, sports sciences encompass social sciences, physical health sciences, and psychological sciences, and also kind of like business sciences, because it's how sport as a business is developed. It's really weird to me because this is a concept I learned in year 7. At 17 in A-level, first year A-level sports psychology, and it's essentially teaching you how an entity, a person, like a dog, animal, whoever, can be trained to, view things, how their perspective is trained, or their behaviors are trained based on what you expose them to. So, for example, if you feed a dog with food just by itself, he's not going to associate it with anything.
With working hard or anything.
But if
I get given food.
Yeah, if you make him sit down, then ring a bell, and then give him food, you've created a motor pathway in the head where it's like, okay,
there's a connection with that bell to getting a treat.
And then you know what? Then the dog slowly realizes, okay, to get the bell to ring, I need to sit down. And that's a condition, like you're now helping them understand the process. The same way those systems you can help understand by conditioning yourself to it. Your face is one of those systems that you have to condition. Self-love is just accepting who you really are. But if you can't accept how you look in front of a camera, that's really, really like
detrimental to
yourself. You're setting yourself so far back. But all you have to do is change your conditioning.
Yeah.
Look at yourself through a camera more than you look at yourself through the mirror, and you'll slowly start ratioing out the times you've seen it. But again, there's people our age who've never done that and are just starting. So the side quest that I did when I was 12, people are just picking up now at 20. That's not a problem. I'm not judging them for it, but you need to understand that's all it is. It's just a part and a journey of your life that you need to pick up at some point. It's your story. You are the main character. If you don't get familiar with looking like the main character, how could you ever feel like one? Mm-hmm. Which is why I'm always up for people taking photos of themselves, and it's kind of empowering because no one else is going to take nice photos of you. You're going to go around like, yeah, you can also play, okay, if you're in the mindset of, yeah, I'm still going to speed run my bag, fuck how I look. All right, cool. Go speed run your bag. Then if you've played that bag well enough, you've got enough money to buy a photographer and they'll make you look great straight away. Mm. But you realize it's not about like, you know, the camera. It's not about how you look. It's about how the photo is taken of you. So you get familiar with just looking at yourself, you to you. Like, so I know people on TikTok will post videos of themselves crying because they've seen how they look when the image has been reversed. And it's like, I know how painful it feels. I personally would not cry, but I mean, I know how hurtful it could be where you think you see yourself and you get prepared in the mirror every single day. You make yourself look a certain way. You have that expectation for yourself and you go, someone's taking a photo of you and you look nothing like it. Do you know, conditioning wise?
I'm like, yo, Ali, take that pic, bro. Take that pic. You ain't taking it right, bro. I know I look better than this, damn it. I can't look that bad, damn.
Ain't no way, boy.
And they're like, bro, that's how you fucking look, bro.
Like the camera's not lying.
Bro, you're doing it wrong.
But that's why, again.
No, that self-appreciation is important.
But that's why you look at filters. I mean, as an act and principle, I don't like people using filters unless they're kind of like stylistic filter color choices. If you're doing something that has to change the shape of your face, you have a facial like identity issue. You cannot identify with yourself because you think you don't identify with what you see on the camera or what the camera sees. The camera sees what everyone else sees. If you can't accept that, what does that say to everyone around you? You need to love yourself truly, and that begins with taking photos of yourself. I'll be so real. And that's like in the top 3, that's still like, I say highest priority, because when people get camera comfortable, then they start self-loving themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
Because I'm there like, I'm like, bro, I'm like, the amount of gems we've had in this episode has been unreal. And I've got to thank you for that.
We need to get you back on it. There's a lot more
we can engage in, but we just scratched the surface.
This is like a taste one.
This is just intro.
Intro, baby.
Part 1.
But no, first and foremost, I want to thank Danny for coming along. You can tap into, tell them all your socials, bro, because I think there's a lot of game that they gotta learn. It's free game, baby.
Obviously, currently working on a rebrand. For now, it is coach.fam on Instagram, coach.fam on IG. It is PHAM. That is, shout out to my Vietnamese heritage. That is a Vietnamese surname you'll find across Vietnam.
Yes,
if you're ever traveling Vietnam this summer or this winter, because I know it's a popular tourist destination, just say Wagwan fam, and someone's gonna turn around.
I love that.
No, Wagwan's not even like Vietnamese, so they wouldn't understand it.
I was like, oh.
But yeah, you'll find a bunch of fams everywhere. But just so people understand, it is pronounced like fam, the London fam, FAM, but it's also PHAM written. So that's just it. That's why I think
some more game, baby. Some more game, baby.
Cultural.
That's what we call that cultural game. But no, honestly, thank you very much for tuning into this week's episode of the Route 411 podcast. And for more guests like this, hit us up in the DMs, man. Tell us who you want. We're gonna keep coming up with bangers for you guys, but you gotta let us know what you people want. And for more gems like this, stay tuned in.